So in episode 61, we got the molds finished. Now in episode 62, we're going to get the molds loaded with carbon fiber, and we're going to get these parts made. As we're making these parts, this is going to be fun. This is an extremely difficult set of parts to make. I did leave this section until the end, so I built all the other parts on the car first. These are among the last parts that I'm going to be building for this car, and by far the most complex molds that I have to deal with. The closing panel, the shut panel where the latch comes in for the hood, is a reasonably simple panel. That one's fine, but boy, that grill panel has got a lot of shape and it happens very quickly, spatially, so it's going to be very, very difficult to do. So join me as we try to get this done.
All products and materials that you see in this video were provided by Composite Envisions. All right, so another great great touch-up of mold surfaces here. So we're just getting ready to go now. We are rushing these molds into production, so a little bit of the Freekote FMS. So that's just a mold. It's basically a mold sealant because these molds haven't been sitting around for the weeks and weeks that they need. So I've applied that as per the prescription. Also used the Freekote 700 NC once again as my mold release just because I have it, and so far it's working great. So I'm happy with it. As long as I apply it properly, that's fine. So after I get all the mold releases and sealers put down, then I'm just touching up some of the areas where I had some flaws in the mold with some of that modeling clay. So now that they're touched up, there's no need to go in and repair the molds. These are going to be a one-time use kind of thing, so not too worried about making them perfect. Now I'm masking up the mold, so the area at the front there, the one panel that I've masked off, is because I'm going to be adhering these two panels together, so there's no need to prime that area, so you just mask it up and then get the primer sprayed on. So once again, the Duratec vinyl ester primer, you just fog that first coat in, you wait for 5 minutes, and then you hammer it on, right? So I love this primer. It actually works great. So I'm super happy with the product, and in it goes. No need to do the center part. They're just getting cut off. So I just soaked it all in there, used every last drop that was in the cup, and then you unmask it before it has a whole lot of time to set up, or else the paper basically sticks down to it. So just follow the instructions that are given by the manufacturer, so Hawkeye Industries there, and you'll be good to go. Now the corner areas where the grills attach, I'm going to add an extra little bit of carbon fiber material that I have into those areas prior to putting on this 4 harness satin material. This is actually a second quality material that Composite Envisions offer. So there must be some sort of flaw with it. I couldn't detect what the flaw might have been. It worked great for me. It's only 190 or so grams per square meter, so it's 5.5 ounces. So it's not the heaviest material, and I'm starting from the middle and working out. So this was difficult to do. I don't mind sharing that. This is not easy. The draw down area there is about 50 millimeters deep, so about 2 inches. And then right in the center of where the two grills don't meet, that's roughly 40 centimeters wide at its narrowest point. So these are some tight ups and downs. That's why I chose the satin material, because it'll drape over that. You'll notice I've not darted or cut or had to do anything with this material to get it in. I am very carefully placing it, and then you'll see that blue Bondo squeegee applicator being used extensively to sort of push the carbon fiber material down very tightly into the mold. I'm just using some 3M Super 77 as a tack glue in this case. You just where it's needed, you just fog a little bit in there. It's not a heavy application. And then onto the shut panel. So the shut panel is also pretty, I thought it was easy to do. I actually ended up with a flaw in the shut panel, and I'll tell you why in a minute. This is the first layer going in. No big deal here. Just trim it off. This didn't take very long to do. I'm just using the cut off remnant areas from the other material. And once again, I'm economizing, so I used right down to the blue tape to get the 2 layers in. Then the next layer is an 8 harness satin, so slightly different weave. You'll notice it's a little stiffer, and at 370 grams per square meter, a little over 10 ounces, this is a much heavier material. So on the shut panel, so this is where we are going to bridge. So you can see this is the big heavy material now. So in it goes, and hard to work. This is very, very difficult to work this material. So it's stiff, much stiffer. It will drape, like it did work, but not easy. All right, so this was, I don't know, an hour or so just to get this mold loaded. Anyway, so get the mold loaded up with the carbon fiber material, and then carefully watching your cutoffs here. I decided that we actually had lots of material for this shut panel. All right, so that's where the latch attaches to, right? So the closing mechanism for the car, for the hood, attaches to the bottom of the panel, so where I'm working now. So as we get going, we are going to need to add in some extra material there. So there's 4 layers of carbon fiber already, and then I'm going to add 2 more for a total of 6. And I'm looking for material thickness. So don't think the engineering is completely backyard here. So I'm measuring the thickness of the original steel panels, and then at the very least matching the thickness of the steel panel, but doing it in carbon fiber just to be on the safe side. So I wouldn't want to go lighter than that, just given what's going on. This is holding my hood shut, so that's important. So now that the sides are on the hood, on the front grille piece are done, I'm adding 2 extra layers of the heavier material to the sides because that's my bolt flange. So then we clean it all up. On goes the bagging tape. So the bagging tape goes in, nice and easy. That's that. It's that yellow tacky tape, Airtech 200. It's fantastic. Then the bleeder material goes on, the peel ply. This is the coated material, and it's fantastic. I just rough cutting this out. Again, it's not real critical at this point, but it is critical that the bleed material, this peel ply, is very closely adhered. This is the mistake that I made on that panel. Watch when I put that on the top panel, when I put it in, I was not as careful. I put a few darts in it to get it in there, but I was a bit lazy with the application, and I really should have been more careful sticking it down. At this point, my brain is completely on the grill panel. So while I'm finishing up this part, I'm just sort of going through the motions, and I'm worried about this panel. That was the mistake. Every panel is as important as the next. So you can't mentally take any time off. So you can tell I'm still kicking myself in the backside for making a mistake. You haven't seen what the mistake is yet. Stay tuned. So this material, you can cut it up. The only thing that happens when you cut the peel ply up is that you are going to get some stringy green leftover filaments in your final carbon fiber part that you just have to remove them when you're done. But you can see the amount of shape that I'm dealing with here. I'm having to slice and dice that material up to get it to fit in, and then I'm gluing it, adhering it down. Every inch of this is going to be very tightly fitted and tailored to the carbon fiber, and it was absolutely necessary to ensure that this was going to go well. Now I'm covering up all the spots and planning how the infusion goes. So I'm going to be doing a pull through, so drawing from one side to the other. Shortest distance is always what you're after here. So I'm going to go shortest distance across that mold, fill in all the little gaps and areas just to get consistency and flow. And then I'm going to create a resin block on the one side by not having the infusion mesh, which is this red mesh that's going in now, by not having that infusion mesh come all the way out to the vacuum line. So that'll even out the flow across the part. Again, so starting in the middle and just snipping and cutting the mesh wherever I need to. It has to also be, I adhered it down as well. You got enough experience doing this, you just know where the problems are going to be eventually, and it's going to be things like the infusion mesh is not going to exactly conform to the part, and it'll stand off the part a little bit even under vacuum, and you'll create bridges and areas where resin will pool, and I've had all of these issues, so just trying to improve techniques every time. So you can see on the right hand side I've left no infusion mesh over there. So the feed line is going to come in from the left-hand side of the screen and be drawn across to the vacuum source on the right-hand side. And again, get that hot melt glue out and get the spiral just adhered down. Make sure your spiral is also off of the carbon fiber. You don't want it imprinting on the carbon fiber if at all possible. All right, bagging materials going on. I lost a ton of footage for this episode, like hours and hours worth. But this is Airtech Stretchlon 800, and you can see the size of the bag. Like even if you look to the left to the bigger mold in the background, and you see how much of that material is draped off of the mold, it's a lot. Like that mold is, I've got at least 30 centimeters worth of extra material all the way around it. This mold is reasonably flat, so I probably only have about 15 to 20 centimeters off either side. That's the minimum requirement for the bag. Like it looks outrageous when you do it, but that's what's needed. So keep the line straight, attach it in the corners first, pleat where you need area and pressure, and the rest is pretty good. Now, again, I was a little bit lax on this flatter part with the placement, and that always doesn't work well.
In case you're ever wondering, if you're working with epoxies, sometimes they crystallize. It happens from time to time when they're high quality epoxies do it actually more frequently than the low quality stuff. But they will crystallize. It has happened to me. I have my part with the vacuum pulled. It's sealed. Everything's great. But I'm now going to be stalled out for a little bit while I fix the epoxy. So fixing the epoxy is really no big deal. So if you have this happen to you, fast forward to this point in the video, because I mean these things will just happen. So what you're going to do is place your resin into a warm water bath. It has to be 125 degrees Fahrenheit. I had to look that up because I don't know what that is in degrees science. So it's about 55 degrees Celsius, somewhere in there. So warm tap water, or hot tap water I should say, will do the trick. So I've had to find a container big enough to actually hold my resin. And I'm just going to add, I've got some hot water here, so I'm going to add the hot water into that. And then you wait and you stir. That'll do it, as we've now floated it. And the resin will then come back to life, right? So there's nothing you can do at this point. You just wait. I should have checked before I did my draw test, right? Because right now, I mean, the mold's sitting here under vacuum, right? It's no problem, but I always feel like I'm wasting time. All right. Anyway, I'm just going to let the camera run, then we'll take care of this little problem as we go.
So just like with everything, as it's getting going, you got to get the hot water coming to you. So my wife is in the background there just boiling as much water as we can get. And then I'm stirring and stirring and measuring the temperature and making sure things are okay. Eventually, it all will get dissolved and you'll be just fine. It's just hours and hours of this. Like, I think it was 4 hours it took. And you can see here just how thick and nasty that was.
After about an hour or so, we've got it back to a fluid state. But as you can see, it's still a little bit milky. And you need to have it sit for long enough that all of that goes perfectly clear. Any of the crystallized epoxy that's still in there, if you don't let it go completely clear, basically remelt it all out, it'll just simply harden right back up again. So don't waste your time, just keep the water bath going until everything's fine. Alright, well, it's been in here for a couple hours. It's all melted now, so it's running clear again. Perfect. Alright, so with that is how you recover crystallized epoxy. Great.
So with the epoxy recovered, we're now going to get the infusion going. So you can see there we just started. This infusion took several hours. I started it, well, it was about 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening when I started it. So it was done at about, well, just before midnight. It does take that long to go if you're going to be infusing very slowly, as I do. And I also stop the resin before everything's all finished, and then just allow the vacuum source to pull the rest of the epoxy through. It's just, I think that's a best practices kind of thing. I've learned over the time I've been doing this, and so far it's working out great. Anyway, so this is all finished up.
Okay, so we're now done. Everything's ready to go, and I just thought I'd show you. This is the risky part. So going to 1.3, I was a little shy because there's absolutely no wastage. So I added enough to get it to 1.4 was the multiplier for this particular mold. And you can see, if the camera will focus, you can see the air bubble right there, right in the center of the frame, right here. So that literally is absolutely every drop out of the bucket has been used at that ratio. Well, the moment of truth is upon us and we're getting ready to heal the mold. Let's have a look. Should be pretty good. That's the hard part, huh? Learned from the last time that a little percussion on this one might be the trick. We'll try some air. Basically, whatever we can get, wherever we can get. We just need to crack the edges all the way around. Oh, this is easy, guys. It's feeling pretty good. Help if I did that. Just the start. Let's not get too excited here. Well, we can get a little excited here. Only 6 minutes into this piece of tape. I got one side up. There it is. There it is. Whew. I think it's stuck through the middle part here. I know it is, actually. Woohoo! I'm totally excited to see this. And I knew you would be too. Woohoo! It's good. Let's just, one little crinkety crink right there. No big deal. No big deal. Anyway, let's just give you a little look. Like again, it doesn't weigh anything at all. Whatever. There's the front nose section. Front nose panel, fresh out of the mold. It's okay, so it obviously we had a little bit of sticky there. Although I didn't really paint that a whole lot, so I don't really think that's anything. Like I didn't soak the primer in there. This though, I have a little. Obviously, I've bridged just a tad, and I have a tiny little chip right here in the corner. Nothing to fix though. That's easy to fix. The rest of this is just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous, people. Throw some protection on. A set of these marvelous easy squeeze clamp things. Can't come more highly recommended that you buy a set of these. They're absolutely genius for controlling flow in your infusions, so for the rate, which is a really important component. You want your infusions to go reasonably slowly, just to make sure everything is getting nice and comfortable with the resin that's going through. Okay, let's tear all this junk off. Contain all the garbage. Here, and work this a little bit. There. And then that's the whole, that was your drama. Compare that, last night I was out here for 2 hours taking the other one out. Tonight, 10 minutes, you know, plus or minus. Looks fantastic. It's going to happen. As you saw at the start of the video, I was having some trouble with the peel ply and the infusion mesh on this particular mold, on the shut panel mold. So bad things are going to happen. Whenever that happens, I made the decision not to go ahead and tear the bag off and fix everything. I tried to fix it on the other side, and that normally results in work. So this is it's not the first time I've had this happen. A few of the parts have had little bumps and blisters, and I know everyone's commented on the primer and all the rest of this stuff, but if you're at home and you're doing this and you're going to paint the parts, it's not a bad idea to prime them. As you're handling the parts, if you've got errors, you'll find them. And for the most part, there's these parts, as you can see, just when you look at the side and the edges and things, those are beautiful. So there's been there's no bubbles, there's no other issues. So what's happened in this area right here is simply, I mean, although I've pressed the carbon fiber material very tightly and adhered it into the mold, the fact that we've had a little bit too much, not enough, you can actually feel it on the backside. There's just a subtle little ridge right here, and it's where the, in this case, the infusion mesh and the peel ply have not been able to conform to the part, so they've sat off the part just a little bit, and what happens is, as you apply the vacuum, they actually suck off the mold just a little touch. So that didn't render, and it's just in this area, like I've pressed and poked and prodded, all the rest of it. Now, how do we repair this kind of stuff? It's going to happen. Again, if you've done this a million times, you know, other videos for you. But if you've done it 0 times, this is a video for you. So what I'm using here is from Premium Resin Tech, also supplied by Composite Envisions, and it's called RDR-Paste. So this is a paste bonding and patching material that is carbon impregnated. As it is sort of right out of the tin, it's very, very thick. So it would be roughly the equivalent of finishing putty, right? Like a finishing Bondo type product in terms of its consistency. I thickened that up with a little bit of chopped, very finely chopped carbon fiber, which they also sell. So that thickens it up. It also lightens it out just a little bit because you're adding carbon fiber into it, which weighs nothing. And then unlike regular Bondo, which I wouldn't advise, again, I've never done it, so I'm just following the advice of others. I just asked, and people said, "Yeah, don't use regular Bondo on carbon fiber parts. It's not really a. Why would you? You can use proper composite repair techniques. In this case, for epoxies. So this epoxy material, it's actually got what I would kind of term extreme workability. So have a look. That's my repair area." So I had, again, tons of time just to go in. I barely have to sand this. Like, it's already straight. Everything's fine. It doesn't shrink. So for those of us that are used to using polyester fillers, they always shrink. There's always, you add a little bit more. How much more? They're a bit mucky and messy when you use them. Well, this stuff's not easy to work, but because the working time's quite long, I found it really effective. Like, I've not sanded that yet. Right? That looks pretty good to me. Anyway, and I wanted to get this part repaired properly as the furnace turns on before I get it bonded into its eventual home. And there were a couple other little touch-up spots just around where I cut out, and there was one other one other little repair area just up here on the edge. It's just tiny, so I've touched that up too. So I'm just going to give these a buff off. I'm going to prepare the part for adhering it using the other adhesive. There's nothing I can do with the furnace, I'm afraid. So my other adhesive is this from ProSet, and it's worked great for me in the past. So we'll adhere these parts together, and we're gonna get all the fasteners and everything put in so that this part is as finished as I can make it for now. And this is not, I wouldn't consider this bodywork. Not yet. We're not at bodywork yet. Okay, let's get back on and get some work done. I'm actually interested to know what the final weight is. I don't know. Nothing? What does it weigh? It can't weigh much. I'll grab the scale and we'll throw it on the scale here just to test it. Oh, 1.5. All right. Oh, 1.45, even better. .45 kilograms for the finished part, including fasteners and everything. Okay, so down and in there. Relax. Ah! Little sticks. Don't you dare. Okay, so we're going to wrap the episode here. Everything's fitting up pretty nice actually at this point. I did have to slot this side in order to get the fender just to come up a little bit. I only needed 1 millimeter or 2, but it's right where I wanted it now, so it's nice and tight. And I'm not too worried about the big gap at the front. Is always a factor on these cars. That's just the way they look. And what I'm going to do is after I get everything finalized on the front and when we're doing body work, we're going to fill this line so that we get a little bit more attractive panel gap, because this is, it's looking a little bit like a gap tooth yokel here. And then on this side it just hangs out a touch. Anyway, once this is all matched in, the line on the top is just, it's perfect. It's right where I wanted it to be. The part weighs 1.5 kilos, a little less. Now there's body work to do everywhere, right? There's little bits of fit and finish, nothing that can't be addressed at the bodywork phase. So I've got the top line matched here, but this bottom part, it's not quite right. So everything is going to have to get fettleed a little bit to make it perfect. But thank you very much once again for joining me on the journey. Please like and subscribe. Haven't said that in a long time. If you want to help a guy out, go to my Teespring store, buy a toque. Some people have asked for the shirts. Actually, just Alan has asked for the shirts, but I'll see what I can do. Anyways, thank you again, and we'll catch you on the next episode.